Hi, I'm Stan Goldstein with Kates-Boylston Publications. As part of our KB On the Road Live series, I'm glad to be joined by Zach Chatterton, the CEO and founder of Gather. Zach, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Stan. It's great to be here.
Okay, tell us, what was the inspiration behind the founding of Gather?
Yeah, I'd love to. So it actually started before I was born. So my dad put on his favorite cowboy hat. He kissed my mom and he went fishing for the day with his best friend. And unfortunately, as we see every day in the funeral industry, he didn't come home that day. And my mom, I don't know how she did it. She was pregnant with me at the time with 2 little kids and just trying to survive. And she went to a funeral home. And when she walked into the funeral home, she had a list of 100 things to do. And she left, she had a list of 200 things to do. And I had a chance to talk to her, decades later and said, "Mom, what was that experience like in the funeral home?" And obviously she said it was hell losing your father. It was miserable. It was the worst. And then I said, "Mom, what was it like working with the funeral director?" And her eyes lit up and she said, "He was incredible." So in the midst of this terrible experience, she said she had this caring and loving and kind funeral director who put his arm around my mom and helped her through those moments. And that's the inspiration behind Gather, is how can we help funeral directors just like that one that helped my mom decades and decades ago to better serve the families that they love and they interact with. We think funeral directing is one of the noblest things you can do with a career. We actually have a funeral director on staff, and we just hired 2 more that are joining the Gather team. Our slogan is "We love funeral directors." So that's the inspiration behind Gather. We want, going through the loss of a loved one, as we all know, is the worst moments we can go through. And we can't fix death, but Gather's vision is to help with everything surrounding the death and to make the funeral director the hero that they really are.
Right. And following up on that, you may have answered it a little bit. Tell us what Gather does overall.
Yeah, great question. So we are full case management software. We're entirely dedicated to the funeral home space. This is all we do. Our whole team here in Boise, Idaho, we show up every day just to help funeral directors. And so we help with everything on 2 sides. So we help with everything for the funeral director. We help task management and case management and team management and collaboration. But then on the flip side of that, when a family like my mom comes in to plan a service, they get access to the Gather platform, which is branded for the funeral home. So the family thinks that the funeral home built this, Gather's completely in the background, and it helps the family with everything that they need to do on their side, which, as we know, can be overwhelming. So things like writing the obituary and collecting photos, but then aftercare tasks like closing your Facebook account, which families might not know how to do, or canceling your Sprint phone, or whatever it might be on the aftercare side, even finding missing life insurance policies that might be out there. So our vision is to help on both of those fronts, help people like the funeral director that helped my mom, but then also help my mom directly, and do it in a way that keeps the funeral home at the center, keeps the funeral home the hero. And we have an entire development team here in Boise, Idaho, and we are just building as much as we can. We listen to feedback from the funeral directors that we work with. We're in 47 different states now, I think, and we're constantly improving and modifying and just making the product the best that it possibly can be. We know that, we have ideas on our side, but the ideas that we need to implement are the ideas that come from the field. And so we're really good at listening to that feedback and building it into the product. We also offer live streaming services as well. We've been doing that for just over a year, and it's been incredible. Families can't view a loved one's service with the pandemic, and we ship a whole kit to the funeral home. They take the kit out, it's already charged and connected. They click a button on the back of the camera and it automatically connects into the Gather platform, and it streams onto a page, and it's hosted forever. So now the family gets to come back and view that live stream recording. They can live stream from anywhere, graveside, a different chapel. And I just think about my mom and how great would it be for me now to be able to see what was said at my dad's funeral and to share that with my kids. And so that's been really rewarding, and it's met a big need in the marketplace for sure.
Yeah, it's the little things like you mentioned, like turning Facebook off and things like that you may not think about, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And what else makes Gather different?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think there's a couple things. I think the family integration from the ground up, we built Gather to help the funeral home and the family. It's not just a bolt-on afterthought. So that's one thing. Usability is another one. So we're big on making it as user-friendly as possible. Not everybody is tech savvy, so we want to make it as simple as possible, as intuitive as possible. And we get comments all the time about how nice it looks and how easy it is to use. Mobility is another one. So from the beginning, we made it work on any device. So every single screen in Gather works on every single device. And there's a lot more. The aftercare that we talked about a little bit is a differentiator. And then having the live stream built in is also a differentiator. So I think when people see Gather for the first time, it kind of opens their eyes like, oh, wow, this is what software is supposed to look like. And it's pretty rewarding. So we always love to see that first reaction when people first see it, and the light bulb goes off.
And what year did you start Gather, and how has your business changed since you began?
Yeah, so I started about 9 years ago, and a lot of that time was just listening and learning, and we built a first version of the product and scrapped it and rebuilt it and scrapped it and rebuilt it. And about 3 years ago, connected with our current chief technology officer and took all of the learnings that we had and basically rebuilt Gather from the ground up. And it's been quite a wild ride since then, and I've just learned a ton. I think I mentioned this a little bit, but I think it's important for a company to be humble and to listen to the market. If I had built what I had in my mind initially, it would have been quite a bit different than what it is now, because we've perpetually just been listening and evolving and changing based on that feedback. So as we sign up a funeral home, we're always asking them, what do you like? What do you not like? What would you change? What would you do differently? How is this solving your problems? And so we've learned quite a bit. And I'd say the biggest learning, I knew this from the story of my mom, but the biggest learning I have is just that funeral directors are good people. They show up to work every day, giving a portion of their happiness to help ameliorate and alleviate the sadness of somebody else. And it's a burden that they take on themselves, but they do it because, as we know, it's a calling in life. We'll ask them a lot of times, why are you a funeral director? And it's usually a story from when they were a kid, or something happened in their life that made them want to do this. And so that's a big learning for us, is just, it's rewarding for us to help such good people. The worst moments of life are when you lose a loved one, and there's so many good people out there that really just want to help people. And our mission statement's to help the funeral director. So
definitely, yeah, they're there on the toughest day of your life, there to help.
They are.
And what trends do you see on the horizon for funeral home software?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we're seeing, obviously, live stream was a big one with the pandemic. Luckily, with the vaccine and the pandemic, hopefully is kind of coming to a close, we all hope. But the trend we see is that live stream is continuing, and we see that in our numbers is even if restrictions are lifted, people still want to live stream and record funerals. There's always somebody that can't travel, or maybe has work, or whatever it might be. And so, we thought we'd tail off, but we haven't seen that yet. So I think live stream is a trend that will continue. And the other trend I would say is just a realization by funeral homes that the best way to help their business is to help the families. If you're only focused on yourself as a funeral home and just, shouting your own praises, I think you miss the mark a little bit. I think you need to focus on helping that family as much as possible. And we see that trend continuing to accelerate. And when people see Gather, they realize, oh, this is for me, but it's also for the family. And the best way that I can help myself is to help the family and to provide this incredible superlative experience for the family. Because we all know when we have a great experience with anything, we want to tell our friends about it. And it's the same with funeral service. If we can help that family just have a great experience like my mom had, she's still talking about the funeral director over 30 years later, and Gather wants to help facilitate that. And so that's a trend that I selfishly see continuing and augmenting.
Great. And Just how's your final question? I want to ask how people may contact you, but I also, you mentioned your mom quite a few times. How she feel that you're doing this to help others like she was helped?
She loves it. It's fantastic. She's always asking, what are you guys building next? How's it going? So that's really rewarding, to see that, to be working on something every day that not only my mom can understand, but that she gets. And she's always calling with ideas like, oh, you guys should do this and do that. So that's cool to see. To get a hold of us, so our website is probably the best place. So it's gather.app.app. And there's a button on there to request a demo. So we have free demos. You can meet with someone on our team who's a licensed director and learn more and take a look for yourself.
Great. Zach, thank you very much for joining us. Very interesting what you do. And I can just see the enthusiasm you have for what you do too. So that's great. Really good.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay,
Appreciate
take
that.
care. Thanks. Bye-bye.